Owen. I am the Industry Relations Manager at the Halicioğlu Data Science Institute, and on behalf of all of us here at HDSI, we want to welcome you to our first virtual open house. It's great to see many familiar faces or other names of both industry partners and campus colleagues, as well as a lot of new names and companies, which is exciting too. Thank you all for joining us this afternoon at this event, which we hope will offer a more in-depth look at our undergraduate data science talent, as well as ways to engage with them. Just kind of a quick disclaimer before we move on to the agenda. We will be recording the presentation portion of the event, but we'll stop recording as we move into the Q&A session. We definitely encourage questions, and just ask that you make those in the chat, and then hopefully we should be able to get to all of those, or at least most of those, during Q&A. And then I think as the presenters start, if we can just turn off video, that way we're just preserving bandwidth to make sure that we have a more seamless event. So, Maggie, do you want to take us to the agenda? Okay, so for the first part of the agenda, which will cover curriculum and a review of the senior capstones, we'll hear from Professor Aaron Frankel, who is the chair of the Data Science undergraduate program, and he also leads our capstone projects. And then we'll also hear from Professor Brad Wojtek, who is vice chair of the Data Science undergraduate program. Margaret Zolke, who is our career advisor and alumni relations specialist, will provide an overview of career services at HDSI, as well as the different ways that industry can recruit and engage with our talent. I'll just provide a brief overview of the industry partnership program, and then we will finish with Q&A. And so with that, I will hand it over to Professor Frankel, who will kick off the presentations this afternoon.
Great. Thanks, Eric. So I just want to take you through sort of a whirlwind tour of the undergraduate program. And to start with that, I just want to show you some context of where we've been and how we got here. You know, a lot of you have heard the history, you know, many times of HDSI and of this program, but just for those who haven't, the undergraduate data science program, it was bootstrapped in 2017. So over the last 3 years, we started as a program incubated in the CS department and became an academic unit in early 2018, and have just graduated actually this last spring our first small graduating cohort 3 years later of 50 students, 50 majors and 13 minors, so a total of 63 students. This really is just the sort of calm before the storm, because the intense interest on campus of data science has been known, and we actually currently have 200 incoming majors joining UCSD this year to join our current 631 and 165 minors. So we actually have, as a community, over 1,000 undergraduate students in our program. And so from 50 to 1,000 is quite the growth that we're dealing with and supporting. You go to the next slide. So what does our program look like? So generally, you know, when choosing a, you know, an emerging program, if you want to like figure out what your major should look like, you sort of need to stake out a region in this space. So I took the data science Venn diagram, the classic one that everybody likes to malign, and put them into axes. And you have to invest, right? Students have to invest a certain number of their units into basically these 3 areas. And our program, honestly, is quite ambitious. what we want to teach and want our students to learn, and have basically created pared down a bespoke double major into one. So we have our students learn a broad knowledge base on all three of these axes. And the reasons for this are that we really think that a student who has a broad knowledge of all the areas of data science really make more effective team members. So for one, if you, for example, are something more of a data or business analyst, if you understand something about how databases work, you'll be more likely to see sooner whether or not there's an issue with data quality if you understand the systems that are actually like curating and processing the data. So all of our students, regardless, they get to specialize in an area that they enjoy, but we also make sure that they have a very solid foundation in all of these areas. You can go to the next slide. However, we don't want to sacrifice depth for breadth. And so our students take, honestly, a very high unit load. They take a lot of courses and they learn a lot and they do a lot. And you can generally structure it and visualize it in a diagram that kind of looks like the one on the slide, where so you see these Intro to Data Science, Practices of Data Science, and Capstone project. So every 2 years, the students kind of get these intermediate touch points of really understanding data science in practice. And between these touch points, they learn more theory, or they learn more foundational material. And then periodically, they apply it and see it all within the more holistic data science life cycle. So generally speaking, early on, they're learning the fundamentals of computer science, and they're learning the fundamentals of probability and statistics. And then later in their junior and senior year, they're learning data systems, databases, machine learning, upper level stats. Alongside all of these data science fundamentals, the students are also learning, taking domain electives, which is also a very key and core component of our major. Next slide. So as students are learning the fundamentals, they also they also have to take, are required to take a certain number of units in domain electives, which they have a fair amount of leeway in which ones they can take. The idea here is we really want to expose students to the kind of the nuts and bolts of how data is really generated, to look at these processes in detail, and to expose students to this sort of subject-specific reasoning and modeling behind these specific processes. So they're not just learning, generic foundations. In order to better organize students' efforts in focus in studying, a domain of interest, Maggie actually put together a new initiative we have to group the domains and to organize them into tracks. And so this is a new initiative, and generally, so students are now electing to study domains in either the natural sciences, the social sciences, kind of economics, business, or human behavior. And so this is, cognitive science and some machine learning and AI in more, sort of, specific and in-depth focus on these in a specific area in those. Next slide. So that's a lot. In order to, so that's the big picture of what students our learning and how it's organized. We also have just put together a sort of cheat sheet to what students learn in the major by year. And so these are actually available in hard copy. And it gives just a quick competency summary by year, the tools students are learning, the sort of concepts they're learning, and how those might map into industry. And so these hard copies will be available to you outside of these slides. But to give you a feel, right, freshman and sophomore year, they're really learning about drawing conclusions from data and manipulating data, getting exposure to the whole life cycle. And then junior and senior year, they're learning more advanced knowledge in theory, and they're put in their senior year, they put it all together in the capstone. Okay, so the capstone. So this is the sort of the culmination of the program, where they apply everything they've learned in the program their senior year. And this is also one way that our HDSI industry partners can directly interact and work with our students. So the capstone is a 2-quarter-long sequence that is grouped into areas of study, which I call a domain of inquiry. And so in this last year, our capstone had 5 domains of inquiry. So these are 5 general areas of study. Each one had a domain mentor, which guided students through this area and advised students on projects in each of these areas. So we had 5 domains of inquiry. You see they vary, just like data science, from kind of core machine learning all to genetics and biology to the social sciences. Next slide. So within each of these domains, there are, maybe 3 to 6 student projects, they're all working groups. So we had 5 domains or areas of study last year, and there were a total of 27 projects, each groups of 2 to 4. And you can get a feel for, so from within each of these areas, students were able to focus on a singular project, right, and investigate their own project. And so sort of the breadth of projects that we get out of the capstone is pretty cool, honestly. So next slide. So as you can see, next year we're scaling. And these are not projects, but these are domains. So next year, we actually have 17 domains of inquiry or areas of study. And each will have somewhere between 10 and 20 students. And we'll likely have somewhere, over 100 projects coming out of our next graduating class. And you can see the breadth the breadth is pretty impressive. In the areas that students will be working on their capstones. And I'll call out in particular to this group that we have 2 industry partners sponsoring domains this coming year. Intel doing one on data collection, and then Viasat has one on what they've dubbed VPN X-ray. So great. And now I'll hand it over to Brad.
All right, thanks. So I guess what I'm supposed to go over generally is the holistic data science approach, the view that we take when we're educating undergrads. I know a lot of you at the various industry partnership meetings, we've discussed this already a little bit, but I love how messy this slide is. Aaron likes to say that it's messy on purpose because so is the field. It's complex and we have a lot to teach the undergraduates, right? And so really what I want to talk about here is our approach to educating undergraduates grew out of the fact that this was a joint effort initially between math, computer science, and cognitive science. And so you'll see here that the predictions inference, data modeling sides of things, those definitely come out of the computer science and math statistics side of things. My very heavily biased view, though, is that when we're talking about data science, we need to disabuse ourselves of the notion that data science equals machine learning plus programming. It's more complicated than that. And so, today we just ran an entire session at the KDD conference. This morning I ran one talking about how do we educate the future data scientists to prepare them for the realities of a data science career. And that entails not just knowing the technical side of things, but sadly for most people who want to be data scientists, those technical aspects of like building building models for analyzing data, that's realistically only like 10% of what they actually end up spending their time doing. Most of the time is doing the find and clean data side of things, and then maybe formulating some questions, and then writing up the reports and communicating those reports to oftentimes non-technical decision makers and stakeholders. And so we don't want to neglect those aspects of data science education. Yes, of course, they have to learn the technical side of things, but they also need to be able to know, how do you communicate technical results to people who are not machine learning specialists? How do you clean data sets? These are decisions that you have to make across all these different levels of data collection and cleaning. And you have to have domain expertise, right? So we talk about the T-shaped education, right? You have to have the breadth, but then you really dig deeply into that base of the T in one of those key domains that Aaron was just talking about. So next slide. Yeah, I forgot that was it. I thought I had more to say. I don't get to talk very much, but I'm going to let other people talk. So Maggie can actually cover all of the like really exciting career service side of things.
Thank you, program chairs. Very lucky to have the program chairs we do. So I'm Margaret Zulke. I do prefer to go by Maggie, but when you are trying to look up my contact information, searching MAR is different than searching for MAG, so I kind of go by both. Some of you may recognize me as I was the first full-time staff member for the Halicioğlu Data Science Institute and was previously serving our student population in an academic advising role since the launch of the undergraduate program. Actually, just last Friday was my 3-year anniversary, so very exciting. And a few months ago, I was given the opportunity to transition into a new role as the career advisor and alumni relations specialist. Within this new role, I'm able to support current students, alumni, and employers as the bridge connecting our talent to available opportunities. In regard to how I can serve employers interested in connecting with our population, my goal is to help develop an understanding of our students' development and potential in an effort to facilitate more effective recruitment of our talent. So I'll start with an example. One of our recent graduates who has transitioned into full-time employment shared with me that the training that they are receiving for their new full-time position is actually quite similar to a required course that our majors will be completing their junior year. So when I heard that, I saw that as an opportunity lost by that employer to fully utilize our graduates' talent to make a positive impact to the full extent of their capabilities. So with this in mind, I specifically used the word potential when describing my goal to facilitate more effective recruitment. As you've learned more about the skill set and knowledge attained through our program and institute, I encourage you to look beyond how our students and alumni fit into the roles you currently have and to examine the pain points within your company where our talent can make a positive contribution towards alleviating those pain points to meet your organizational goals. So to help you learn more about our students and alumni, let's dive into some data. So starting with the international status of our student population, you'll see that our incoming student cohort, we have 21% of those students have an international status. For our current students, 41% of those students have an international status. And for our alumni, 32% of those students have an international status. So along with that skill development breakdown that we'll be sending everybody after the presentation, I also have some additional data cheat sheets to send along. So you'll get more of a breakdown. But essentially, when looking at the data, I found that there were two main visas that our students held. One is an F1 visa, which is for an academic student. And so within that cheat sheet, you'll actually be provided a link to the UC San Diego International Student and Programs Office website, because they actually have an entire page dedicated to helping employers hire students with F1 visas. And the other majority of the visas that we saw are PR visas. And what that stands for is permanent residency. Permanent residency is a person's resident status in a country of which they are not citizens, but where they have the right to reside on a permanent basis. This is usually for a permanent period of time, and a person with such status is known as a permanent resident. And so you shouldn't expect many obstacles when it comes to employing those specific students. Looking at the first generation status of our students, unfortunately, we don't have access to that data for our incoming students. So when we look at the current students, about 22% of our current students are first generation college students, and about 24% of our alumni are first generation college students. When we compare ourselves to UC San Diego as a whole, about 38% of the undergraduate student body in the fall of 2016 identified as first generation college students. And so I'll be interested to see, once we're able to access that data for our incoming students, how that adjusts our percentage for our current student population. And in regard to gender within our population. So what's interesting is that for the incoming students, they've actually adjusted the way students are able to identify themselves. So in the past, students could only identify as male or female, whereas moving forward, men will be considered both cis and trans, as well as women will be considered both cis and trans. And so when we look at our incoming students, 72% are identified as men, 27% are identified as women. Current students, we see 74% identifying as male and 26% identifying as female. And for our alumni, 68% identifying as male and 30% identifying as female. So regarding this gender data, I'd actually like to refer to the National Center for Education Statistics, which states that overall, a higher percentage of bachelor's degrees were awarded to females than to males in 2015 to 2016. They saw that about 58% of females received a bachelor's degree, whereas 42% of males received a bachelor's degree. However, in STEM fields, a lower percentage of bachelor's degrees were awarded to females than to males. It actually was 36% of females and 64% of males. This pattern in which females received higher percentages of bachelor's degrees but overall lower percentages of bachelor's degrees in STEM fields, that was actually observed across all racial and ethnic groups. And I believe it's important to examine the intersectionality between race and gender as we examine how to support our diverse student population. At this time, we do not currently have access to race data for our current student population, so I'll continue referring to the NCES, which determined the gap between the percentage of STEM bachelor's degrees awarded to males and the percentage awarded to females was largest among white students. It was about 33 percentage points, followed by Pacific Islander students. That was about 28 percentage points. Hispanic students with 25 percentage points. American Indian Alaska Native students, 23 percentage points. Asian students, 21 percentage points. And students of 2 or more races was also 21 percentage points. Black students with 11 percentage points had the smallest gap between the percentage of STEM bachelor's degrees awarded to males and the percentage awarded to females. And I bring this up as a reference point for when we are able to access that data as we examine gender, race, and the intersectionality within the data. So as we mentioned, we were thrilled to have our first graduating cohort this spring. So I'm going to specifically focus on the spring data, but you will receive spring and the students that are completing the remainder of their courses this summer, along with those digital materials that we'll send to you. And I am so proud to share that within 2 months of graduating within a global pandemic, 64% of our graduates that graduated this spring have found placement in either industry or a graduate program. So when we look at the 30% of students that moved on to a graduate program, when talking with those students, because they completed the program in just 3 years, they found that they wanted to continue their education to either further develop their skill set or further dive into research efforts. Additional students within that group, they actually had their offers rescinded during the pandemic, and thankfully, many grad programs were very flexible and lenient with their admissions process, and so those students were actually able to, because they were unable to find new employment opportunities, they were able to secure a position in a graduate program. When we look at the students that did find placement in industry, I found it really interesting that the students that were able to secure full-time employment, they were able to do so within a month of graduating. And the students that chose to accept part-time employment, that was within 2 months of graduating. And so I think we can kind of all understand that, given the current outlook, that you know, they accepted a position that would get them working. And it's also worth noting that those students shared with me that those positions that they accepted, it was accepted with the understanding that it could potentially lead to full-time employment depending on their performance. Now, when we take a closer look at the students that don't have current employment, when you just look at that specific data, 69% of those students are male identifying and 31% are female identifying. But we have to acknowledge that we do not have a 50-50% ratio within our student population in terms of gender. And so when you actually take a closer look at that data, we find that 25% of the male population of our alumni is currently unemployed. But 36% of our female population within our alumni is unemployed. And this actually aligns with a recent study conducted by the UC San Diego Extension Center for Research and Evaluation, which stated that while universities are seeing an increase in female student percentage in STEM programs, we are not seeing an equal hiring percentage in the workforce after graduation. In fact, UC San Diego graduates a higher number of female STEM students than the national average. And when we look at San Diego, the region has outperformed the national average in attracting women in STEM. More than 4,500 women entered the local STEM workforce between 2016 and 2018. However, despite the potential for significant growth, the numbers fail to show a meaningful shift in the hiring or retention of female STEM talent. We need to understand why UC San Diego is graduating close to equal numbers of women and men in STEM, and why that does not translate to gender equity in the local workforce. So this report really demonstrates that significant barriers persist, and it also suggests that more deliberate action is needed. And that's exactly where I see an opportunity for HDSI Career Services to work with our industry partners or interested industry to really correct this course and to really bridge that gap to connect our diverse talent to available opportunities. On that note, when we look at opportunities for our students, I'm curious how many of you actually have a BS in data science listed as a desired qualification, because there is a lot of data out there that shows that women actually are less likely to apply to an opportunity unless they meet every single qualification listed. And I see that as really one of the barriers that we're seeing, and that's potentially what's going on with our female alumni and why they're not being placed in industry at the same rate that our male identifying students are. And so as we approach this upcoming recruitment, I really encourage you to reevaluate the way that you're presenting opportunities to students. Evaluate whether or not you even have a bachelor's of science in data science as something that you're looking for. And hopefully we can work together to create more access to getting our students placed into these amazing opportunities that you have available, rather than creating a barrier just with the way the opportunity is presented itself. So we have some really exciting events coming up, and I know that this recruitment season is going to look very different, but we are committed to not only making sure that we're still connecting you with our students, but that we're creating opportunities for engagement. So some of those events, what those look like: in early October, we are planning a senior orientation that is restricted just to graduating senior students. We hope to offer an alumni panel, an industry panel, and a virtual networking component so that you can get to know our graduates right in the beginning of the recruitment season. That will then lead to Data Science Talent Day on October 15th that we partner with our Data Science Student Society student organization. So with that niche recruiting opportunity for data science talent at UC San Diego, it spans beyond just the major or the minor, but students involved with that student organization that aren't necessarily, specific data science majors or minors, but are students that are still talented within data science. On that note, the Halicioğlu Data Science Institute offers an undergraduate scholarship program to all current students attending UC San Diego to present a research idea based in data science. And if it's accepted, we fund their research and pair them with a mentor. And so one of our most recent cycles is actually coming towards the end of their time. And so towards the end of October, we're hoping to host an event where you can actually get to see those projects and connect with those students. And lastly, you've heard all about the capstones. We've got a lot of them coming. And in March, that's when those students will actually be completing those projects. And we're hoping to host some sort of virtual kind of capstone project fair. So you not only get to see what they've done with those different domains and project topics that you just saw a little bit ago, but you get an opportunity to really interact and talk with the students about their experience. One thing I would just like to bring to your attention, so if you already have opportunities ready to go, we have recently updated our website. So you'll see on the menu, there's a job opportunities option, and we've updated it to include an option to recruit our talent. When you click on that, it will bring you to an online submission form where you can put in all the information about the opportunity, and then I actually send those opportunities out on a weekly basis. And if you are interested in further engagement, whether it's a capstone or just being more involved in the Institute and with our amazing student talent, there is the Industry Partnership Alliance program, which I'll let Eric Moyen talk a little bit more about.
Thank you, Maggie. That was a great overview and a very nice look at our student demographics and how to engage with our students. I just wanted to take a few minutes to talk about kind of the most common way that we formally partner with industry, which is our Industry Partner Alliance program. And so this is a program that is really designed for companies that want a more comprehensive strategy in terms of engaging with HDSI around talent, research and innovation, continued learning, and playing an active role in our industry member board, as well as the data science community that we are really building around the Institute. I would say talent is probably the #1 motivation for partnering with HDSI for most companies. Kind of the main objective we're trying to achieve is working with our industry partners on developing a holistic and sustainable approach to building a pipeline of data science talent for internships and full-time opportunities with our partners' companies. And we want to make sure our partners have the opportunity to engage and connect with our students early and developing and nurturing these relationships, throughout the year and throughout the duration of the partnerships. And we do this through a variety of different events and programs, whether it be, freshman and senior orientation that Maggie was talking about, various recruiting events, company-specific events, such as information sessions, networking nights, student project presentations and showcases, and so forth. We also want to make sure our students know what data science looks like at our respective partners' organizations and what type of problems they are solving. And we think by doing that, we're also helping our partners kind of build their data science recruitment brand at UCSD. And another priority is engaging our partners in the career readiness of our students. And that could be, in the form of resume workshops, office hours, mentorship programs, and so forth. In terms of research and innovation, our partners benefit from direct access to HDSI faculty members and their deep subject matter expertise, as well as providing partners with support to identify and facilitate research opportunities with these faculty, as well as students to solve data science challenges. And as you kind of gathered from our chairs earlier in the presentation, one of the priorities at HDSI has been to engage our students with real world data sets and enabling our students to work on projects with mentorship from industry. So in a way, we're kind of bringing our industry partners into our curriculum from a practical sense. And as an industry partner, you can propose a mentor, a 2-quarter-long capstone project with, up to 20 students, thereby becoming, an active participant in the development of domain expertise and skills of the data science talent pool so that it aligns with your organizational needs, and which is, I think, kind of a game changer. You also have these students now working on data and problem sets that are relevant, to your business, with some tangible results in terms of, projects, showcases and papers. And during this process, whether it's capstones or, mentoring or year-long HDSI undergraduate scholarship projects or other more organic, student projects, you're working with these students, you're seeing them in action, you're developing these relationships, and in turn, this, feeds into your talent pipeline as well. In terms of continued learning, we offer many different ways, for our partners, to stay current in the field of data science and what's happening at UCSD within data science. Helping, connect staff and management with educational resources. We do this through a variety of different offerings like seminars. We have speaker series. We have workshops. Some feature faculty members, researchers, and so forth. But we even have workshops where we're bringing in subject matter experts, from our industry partners as well, and sometimes both. We also offer, sort of symposiums that are more sort of deep dives into subject matter domains. And then the fourth pillar of our industry program is we kind of label leadership. Partners participate in quarterly industry member board meetings and provide really important input regarding curriculum, research, and key topics for HDSI. And this has really become a critical two-way communication channel between the Institute and our members in terms of making sure our activities and academics are relevant to the skills needed in industry and the problems being solved out there. And of course, our partners become very part of a very engaged community of leaders in data science. And we're, really trying to build an ecosystem around HDSI by bringing together, industry, faculty, students to really further the field of data science in a very cross-disciplinary manner. So we invite all of you to, especially those who are not partners yet, if you have any questions or just curious, welcome any questions or follow-up.